Hey y'all, it's Ashley from I Have Plans for You. We're going to get ready to decorate my March BuJo spread with these cute gnomes and mushrooms. We're going to draw a little and use stickers, so stay tuned. All right, y'all, let's get started. So I have drawn out a little bit of what I want to draw and letter here for the intro pages, and I just used this kneaded eraser to kind of lighten that up a little bit. I don't know what brand this one is, but I can link one below. These are immensely helpful if you need to sketch before you start drawing. I also have stickers from the Shroomy Little Gnomes set that's available in my shop. I do have a video where I'm sharing all the details about the Shroomy Little Gnome collection, and I'll link that below. But I also have something that you all over here on YouTube don't get to see very often, which is my painted papers. These are Patreon exclusives, and then I have just a blank sheet of paper here as well. Also, forgot to mention, if you're not new here, then you know that this is a 8x8 Archer and Olive square dot grid notebook. I have the one with the camera on it. I'll have another video coming up soon because I just bought some more stuff from Archer and Olive and I love their products, so I'm just gonna share them with you. But these painted papers, they're like collage papers, but I actually paint them on an app called Procreate on my iPad, and they're available every single month. They match the current month's theme over on Patreon for my shop. So Shroomy Little Gnomes, mushrooms, like same color scheme and all that. I do have the small pouch here. There's so much shroom in here, y'all. Ha ha ha. But I have all of my supplies in here, and I'm gonna go ahead and pull them out and get started. This is the bigger pouch, but let me pull them all out. So let me see. I don't want to dump it because I don't want to get this page dirty. If you're wondering what these little spots are, in my last video I showed you all how I would letter this quote here. So some of that ink kind of went through. But that's kind of atypical for these Archer and Olive notebooks. I just used so much ink trying to make sure I was getting things straight and even on there. But so we have our normal, like, you know, we have our ruler. I have scissors that I'm definitely going to use. I don't think I'm going to use this cutter. And then I mean, I shouldn't use this whiteout, but I'm definitely going to use, so like I've already used this pen, this pencil, and this eraser. I really like erasers that I can kind of like control a lot of eraser. So I have this little set that I use to like actually draw everything, plus, you know, the kneaded eraser I showed you earlier. We always have our size 10 jelly roll. And then I'm definitely going to need this adhesive because I'm going to be putting some of these collage papers down. And then the main stars of the show here are actually these Grabbie pens. So these are acrylic pens, y'all. This is my first time using acrylic in my BuJo. So let's, you know, I'm a little bit nervous, but we're gonna do it together. You'll be here with me. So I'm using number 666. Y'all, with these Grabbie markers, the color that you see on the cap is sometimes nowhere near the color that comes out. So just be mindful of that. You'll notice that here with this green. This is like a true green, but that top looks like seafoam or something. But this teal color is 666. This green color is 685. This lighter kind of like lime green is 635. This cream color is 640. And this like lavender color, maybe, so like a brighter pinkier lavender, is 613. I also pulled out Tombow markers that are the closest match to these colors. The only one that's like slightly off is this one because it's more brown than that cream. But I think I might like that if I use these. So I have a few ideas that I have not tested out yet, and we'll see how they work all together. Um, might have to pull out the white acrylic marker to cover something up, but hopefully not. Hopefully everything goes great. I'm gonna go ahead and get started. I'm going to stop talking and we will get into this cover page. I don't think I'm using any of these scrap pages on this cover page, so let's go ahead and start to draw. Okay, so what you see me doing first here is this super easy blending technique where you just paint the tip of one marker with the other. And I'm painting the tip of the lighter green with that darker green that I have in the Tombow markers. And I'm using specifically the Tombow markers for this because I knew I wanted some sort of ombre effect. And this one is giving it, as you see, like darker at the beginning of the word, and as you write, that ink runs out on the tip, and you get that lighter lime green color. Now, there are other methods for blending colors, especially with these Tombow markers, but this one is the method that is the least invasive and juicy on the page, so that I can make sure that I don't the color doesn't bleed through to the back of the page. So now I'm going in with one of those Grabbie markers, that lilac color, and I'm doing that kind of like separated drop shadow that you all have probably seen me do in probably all of my lettering videos. And then I'm gonna go back and add a few dots and embellishments on the actual green part of the letters. But I use the Tombow markers to do that blending technique because it's easier to blend those for me than the acrylic markers, because those Tombow markers are water-based and they do advertise blending as an option for them. So I do want to mention that this part of the video is sped up by about 250%, so a little over double time. And the reason I'm mentioning that, as always, is because I don't want you all to think that I'm lettering this fast. So my biggest tip for learning lettering and practicing your lettering to get better is to slow down. I actually included some tips about that in my newsletter this month, or this past week. So if you want kind of like recommendations and tips for how to get better at drawing or planning or brush lettering, then subscribe to my newsletter because it's free and I only send it once a week, and I give nice tips like this in the newsletter. You can get to it at www.ihaveplansforyou.com. But now you see me adding these white kind of like highlights that I like to do to my letters. And this is pretty typical for my like highlight style as well. These are kind of like my go-to highlights. I will say though that this cream color Grabbie marker is not as opaque as some of the other colors, and that's kind of my only thing about the Grabbie markers. The lighter colors aren't as opaque as kind of like a Posca pen would be, but then the darker colors can sometimes I guess streak a little bit, not so bad that I'm hesitant to use the word streak because it's not horrible, but you'll kind of see it on the page as I'm using the colors. Like you'll see me go back in a few times with some of these acrylic markers, but that's okay on these Archer and Olive papers. They're thick enough to where and generally acrylic ink doesn't seep through the page anyway. It kind of sits on top of the page versus the Tombow markers that are water-based, and they're gonna seep through a little bit. So I'm just going back through thinking about how I want to use which color for which detail on the page, and thinking about how many times or how many layers I might want to put to give it the pop or the colorway that I want it to have, and considering that when I'm just really kind of like freehand going in and drawing and coloring these ideas. And so those are just pretty much my basic flowers that I use as fillers often, but I didn't want to use kind of like a more elegant flower like we did in January, those roses, because this is a playful spread. The gnomes and mushrooms are just very whimsical, and I knew I wanted to add some floral elements because I didn't do many in February, but I wanted it to be like light and playful. So I'm using brighter colors to convey the playfulness, but also more playful designs. Okay, so now that you kind of see how I'm maneuvering the pens here to draw each motif, I am kind of coming up with this on the fly, how I'm going to use which markers. And so you'll see in some places on this side of the page, especially at the top here where I'm doing the flowers and the month and year, I am going back and forth between the acrylic markers and the Tombow markers to see how I want to layer. So with that lilac color, the acrylic pen layers a little bit better on top of the Tombow, but then you'll see that when I go in with the green for the leaves, that green doesn't really show up. So then I try the Tombows on top of the acrylics, and I get an interesting shadow there that I like. So once I realize how they are going to work together, then I kind of get my confidence and start really going in with the design that I want to make. So I just want to give that as a tip. If you study your materials, like you can watch videos and take classes, but you're not going to learn how the mediums work with each other and how you work with the mediums until you do enough pages yourself. So play around with things yourself and don't be afraid to kind of like just go at it. Now we're down to the bottom of the page, and I am using that cream color again, and you can kind of see now what I mean when I say they're not as opaque as the other colors. So you can see the dots under there a little bit, and you can see my pencil markings, which is normally acrylics will cover up anything that's underneath. And so you'll see that with that cream color and some of the other colors, I kind of go over more than one time once they kind of dry. And these take no time to dry, maybe like seconds. I wouldn't put like 5 or 6 coats down, but 2 or 3 is okay. Only because even though that ink sits on the top of the paper, it can cause the paper to kind of like wrinkle a little bit just because it is getting wet still. And now we drew mushrooms together back in October of last year, and that was kind of just like this little whimsical spread that I was doing, trying to use my markers and trying to like match the color of my planner. And I really, that's like my first go at falling in love with drawing mushrooms, and I've been trying to figure out how to use them and like use them in stickers and in everything else since then. And luckily my Patreon members did choose the theme of mushrooms and gnomes. At the time it did not have a title, but it was just the idea of like mushrooms and gnomes. Like at the time we didn't even know the color palette. They went and chose that later. But I really enjoyed drawing these mushrooms. They're super easy, but they can look really detailed in a short amount of time, and you'll kind of see what I mean. So just starting the mushroom off, you got the stem and then the cap, which are just the shapes that we're going to color in. Make sure you kind of shade in the under part of the cap a different color to give it a little bit of depth there. But then you'll see it's super easy to go in and fill in those spots on the mushroom and add just like a simple shadow all around, and it looks really good for a cute and short and easy motif there. And I did get requests to do gnome illustrations for the month of March, since we're doing gnomes, and I'll do gnomes and mushrooms because I want y'all to see how easy it is to draw these mushrooms as well. The gnomes are also not as hard as you would think because most of the face isn't even there. It's like a nose. I start with the nose, and you'll kind of see that when I get to the gnome that's down there. But the face is like all nose, and it can be all different shapes and stuff. But I will do a tutorial later this month where I show you how to draw different types of mushrooms in this fun way, and then these cute little gnomes. So here you can see where I'm actually going in with the Tombow marker on top of the acrylic marker to draw in my shadow. And so these two mediums, the acrylic and then kind of like this watercolor marker, they flow really well together. So I'm enjoying this, and I think that I might use this technique in future spreads and like in just future art. I don't draw that much on paper. I draw more digitally. And so doing my BuJo spreads has allowed me to kind of like have a reason to do things on paper. And I'm just really finding so many things that I like about it. And I just really am interested in sharing with you all too. If you kind of are nervous or intimidated by doing some art or drawing something on your page, the only way to get better at it is to do it. So grab your markers, grab your acrylics, and I'll link all of these below. Like I said, I do like the Grabbie markers, the Grabbie acrylic markers. I got them off of Amazon, so I'll leave the link, but just keep in mind that the colors are not always what the color of the cap is, but they do give you a swatch card that I highly recommend just going on ahead and filling out. And then some of the colors aren't as opaque. They can feel a little bit scratchy on the page because they're kind of like a sponge tip, but it's not too bad. And I've had other sets of acrylic markers that have that kind of sponge tip too, so I'm kind of used to it. It's not like, I mean, you get what you pay for kind of, and it's not that bad. So I realized that I did not have any skin tone markers out, so I pulled out my case of these little Fudenosuke colors, and there's a brown in here, and then I already had that kind of tan color. I guess it's kind of like a light brown color that we were going to use anyway. So I decided to kind of like pair those together for shadow and depth on the face and hands. And then I'm gonna go in with this lilac color for the hat. And my mode of thinking about colors in this case, because I did not plan my colors out beforehand, I'm just trying not to have the same color next to itself too many times. I want to make sure that the colors are dispersed amongst the page and that they're balanced across the page, so not too much teal in one side or not on the other. And you know, if I want something to pop with a certain color, then I keep that in mind as I'm, you know, coloring the things around it. Now it did get tricky coloring in this gnome because I was just working with the 5 colors, 7 colors if you really think about the variations when you add both sets. But I use those kind of like learning moments. I use those times as learning moments so that when I do the gnome on the other side, I have a better idea of which colors kind of work well together. Now, the reason it was tricky for me was because I wanted her shirt to be that cream color, but I didn't actually have a color that wouldn't be too harsh of a shadow. So I had to go back in with the with the Tombow marker to just like darken up the purple, and I was just trying to fix it, you see, towards the end there. But I give her these braids, and when I do braids, these are just some playful, like loose looking braids. But braids are interesting because they're kind of like a C curve going down into, like, you know, the tip of the braid. And I knew that I kind of wanted to do her hair like the sticker looked. So there's one sticker where the gnome has wavier hair, but it's got like some of the teal and purple streaks in it. I did not like how that was looking on here because the hair wasn't popping enough with the actual colors that I had. So it's much easier to draw and get all the colors you need on the iPad because you have so many different color variations that you can choose from digitally. But when you have to really use the colors that you have in front of you with markers on paper, you have to be more thoughtful and really figure out how each of those colors and mediums will work together. So I thought this was an interesting learning lesson for myself as well that I did try to apply to the other side of the page. So I'm just going in now and filling in those little tiny mushrooms that you probably couldn't even see until I started filling them in with the acrylic. But these are just going to be super simple because some of these details are kind of intricate, even though these are these playful kind of big looking details. But the Grabbie markers and the Tombows are kind of hard to get super delicate details in. So those mushrooms, those smaller ones on the bottom, I'm just keeping super simple. Okay, so now for the grass, I'm doing these kind of like flicky motions where I use hard pressure down at the base of the grass, and then I lighten up and just let the tip be touching the paper, the tip of the marker touch the paper towards the end, and that gives it this kind of blade grass look. And I wanted it to look like she was kind of just like hanging out amongst the mushrooms in the grass. So I'm using different colors to give it a bit of depth, and you'll see me kind of like go back with the same color and overlay later to make it look like some blades are in front or behind of, you know, each other. So I'm trying to soften up the details on the gnome there, especially around those spots where it's just very harsh, where those acrylic markers were. And I'm going in with the Tombow to do that. And now we're on the other side of the page. We're going to start here with a quote, and I'm determining which colors I want to use for my big words. So the kind of like beginning of the quote is just super simple, and I'm doing it in almost this really handwriting style. And it's in this, I'm using the bullet tip of that light brown Tombow marker, and I'm just writing, "Don't wait for someone to bring you flowers." The only thing that I kind of sketched out before in regards to this line is I wanted to make sure it be spaced appropriately. But then I went in and I'm using green colors for plant and garden because, like, I was thinking of greens and grass. And then to do the words, decorate and soul, I felt like those were more colorful words, and so I'm doing those with the two like pops of color that we have in this color palette. This is interesting because I'm doing kind of like my bouncier style here, and we did my bouncy style, I want to say, for the second or third time over on Patreon. I do monthly letter with me's where I letter in real time and I provide a lettering page for you to practice on as well. And this month was the first time though that I did my bouncy style, but I also in the same video did my basic style that's in my workbook, and I put them side by side so you can really see the difference between kind of bouncing those letters. So last month, I don't even think in January I do a mini calendar, and I found myself missing the mini calendars in the monthly spreads. So if you see when I first set up this BuJo, I do have the year at a glance that have mini calendars, and those calendars are actually available on Patreon as well. However, I was flipping back to the front of the month, and the further I got in the year, so now we're all the way in March, it took longer to flip back to that month at a glance. So I just decided, okay, that's something I definitely know that I want to keep in my spreads, so let me go ahead and just write a little calendar here. I don't tend to write in the month because I have another planner that I kind of write those details in, but I just need to see what date falls on which day, and so I wanted to include that mini calendar there. But I thought it'd be cute to kind of include it like it was part of the scene here, and so I am going to start off doing the top of the mushroom, and this is a cute little mushroom cottage that, in my mind, this story on this page is that they're playing near one of their cute little homes. And as you can probably see, this teal color is starting to, I don't know, they feel like they lose ink a little bit as you draw. So you can see that it's a little streaky, me filling in that mushroom. And I'm gonna kind of go back in and fill in a few more spaces, but then I remember that this is my BuJo and I don't want to shoot for perfection. So I just keep along with the house part, the cottage part, the living quarters of the mushroom. So in my opinion, those streaks when you're using the Tombow markers kind of look like the lines that you would see on a mushroom. Now that didn't hit me until late though, because I would have used those streaks the entire way with the mushroom and then kind of filled in my shading at the top later. But that is a tip I often give with Tombow markers. So you get that streaking when you try to fill in spaces, and just markers in general. So we get those with like Crayola markers as well. But sometimes you can use that streaking to your advantage, and that is immensely helpful when you are doing things like flowers and wood, or like line textures like this mushroom. I'm going in with the cream there to kind of brighten up the windows. I thought about adding like a yellow on top just to like kind of make it look like there was light coming from inside of the house, but I didn't want to veer too far away from the colors that we had chosen for the palette, and I decided against that. But like this time for the purple flower, I'm going in with the acrylic marker first, and then I'm going to fill it in with the Tombow. And you see I'm kind of using those streaks to my advantage to kind of give that textured effect that flowers have, and that also kind of gives you an idea for the direction that the petals are flowing. So I'm doing these same leaves again. I did go back into the stamen of the flower and just add some dots with that cream Grabbie. And that's just because I wanted the bottom to be a little bit darker than the top of the middle of the flower there. I'm going in, and because I love the way that the green shadow on the mushroom dots look so much on the other side of the page, I'm using that same technique on this side. So go down with the acrylic markers first, and then once that I feel like that dries pretty good, I'm going to go back over it with the Tombow. Now I'm doing these very playful looking flower designs on the actual house. I want it to look like there are flowers all over it. And so I'm doing the spotting also a little bit differently over here too, because this is a special house. But I'm doing these flowers on the actual mushroom in the same way that I did the flowers for our filler flowers in my January BuJo setup. So I'm kind of doing the shape of a flower, but instead of just like one big rounded petal, I'm forming and shaping the petals with like individual strokes, and they kind of meet up at the end to shape the end of the petal. So I went in and I'm filling in the door. I'm trying to put as much color on this house as I can without overpowering it, while also staying within the color palette and trying to use all the colors that I have. So I put a few leaves here. And then I have these kind of drop leaves coming from these round windows. One little tip is when you want to keep things cute, keep them round. So you see my windows are round, the door has a rounded arch, and also my leaves don't come to a full point. So I wanted to keep this playful and cute and fun, and so I don't have too many like pointy or rough spots here. Now we're finally done with the house, and so I'm gonna go in and figure out which colors I haven't really used a lot and make mushrooms with those. Yes, there are mushrooms at the mushroom house. Now on this side of the page too, I wanted to kind of play around with the different shapes of mushrooms, and I really like this longer, skinnier mushroom that I'm drawing here. I had to fight the urge not to draw more of these skinny little tall mushrooms. These are super cute. And the one thing about mushrooms is that, yeah, you have the stem and the cap, but they can be so many different shapes. So you have so many options just drawing this one little thing, especially when you have a bunch of different colors too. So now we're finally down to drawing this little gnome, and as you can see, I'm already starting off a little better. I learned from my mistakes on the other side of the page, and I'm very proud of myself because I just moved on instead of like getting upset and trying to like fix it so bad that I messed it up on the other side. But you can see already this one kind of looks a little more natural in color, and then I'm just going in and filling in the clothes. And this little gnome is very similar to the boy sticker that says that's wild Gnomey. So that's what I was thinking about when I did this little gnome. I put him in slightly different colors than the sticker, but I don't know why he's just so easy to draw, but then I guess that's why I like it too. He's super cute, but then super easy. These just like basic kind of shapes with the rectangles for the pants and that short little shirt to make sure that you know he's kind of like little. And in this case I added a little bit of dotting, polka dots on the pants. I'm just coloring in the neck there, and I feel like this gnome looks a lot better than the first gnome. You let me know, because oftentimes you all are like, no, I like the complete opposite. So I'm just trying to add a little bit of shading here, and you see I didn't really go overboard like I did on the other side because I learned my lesson again. And we're gonna go ahead and add a few little details to one of those small mushrooms and get our grass drawn in here. So I kind of wanted it to look like a continuous scene. I know that the grass on this side is a little bit shorter, but I have a few more things going on this side. I still feel like it looks like one cohesive continuous scene though. So we'll look at the whole spread here, and we have our little gnome garden with March 2025 and our quote. I didn't feel like the top was popping as much as the bottom on that second side, so I'm going in with the black Fudenosuke. These are really easy to control because they're a hard tip, so I can still get that kind of thin line pretty easily because you have to be very intentional about pushing down. That's why these are good for beginners, and when you have been lettering for a little while, then you probably would prefer a softer tip. But I still use these for things like this. I know that I have to press down harder to control what I want to happen. So these are great for flowers, and also for like just an all-inclusive small thin line like I'm doing, or for a more calligraphy style lettering. Alright, so we are now all done for real with this page. So I wanted to show you what that looked like before we go to the next page. So I have those scrap papers that I talked about at the beginning of the video, and I had this cute little idea to cut out the mushrooms. So I have a idea of what I'm going to do on this page. I didn't need to actually draw anything out or sketch anything out for this page. It's just going to be super fun, and on this page you don't have to worry about drawing too much. If you're like, I didn't come here for that, I just wanted to like lay some cute stuff down on the page, then this is the page for you. So I'm gonna cut these out, and once I get this one cut out, I will actually use YouTube magic to continue the video. But the motifs that are super huge on the page, I really like that look. And so you see I have all of my mushrooms cut out here, and I'm going to actually, instead of tearing the paper, I'm going to cut, because I want these like wavy lines at the edges instead of kind of like that torn edge effect. So I'm going to lay these papers as I typically would on the corners, but instead of tearing, I'm going to cut the waves in like I want them to be. And then I'm going to kind of fit the mushrooms around. But the idea for this page is like the mushroom spots. So this page is more about mushrooms than gnomes, but still, you know, it's all gonna flow in together because we're gonna use some of those gnome stickers. But I like how on the right side of the page, those mushrooms kind of look like they have a little bit of depth, and one looks like it's coming out from behind a hill a little bit because I'm going to put it behind that paper. So you see me playing around with the stickers here. I'm not even going to letter the days of the week. I'm using stickers. Just in case you didn't know, every single month, all of my Sophisticreator Patreon members get the set of stickers as a download. So if you wanted to download them this size, or if you wanted to make them a little larger, like you might see you want to do with the boxes after you see how I do this spread, then you can do that. I really love digital stickers because you can kind of make them your own on the page. So if you want to have like a super huge gnome on one page, you can do that. And I'm just going in with this Tombow adhesive here. I really like these. This one in particular though is kind of like, it comes out as these little tiny dots. I prefer the one that comes out as kind of like tape. If you know what I'm talking about, you know there's one that comes out more like clear tape than dots, and you probably can't even really see it on there, but I will link the one that I'm talking about below because I do prefer it over this dotty one. But they're both fine. So if you can't find the other one in the store and you do find this one, it works just fine. And also, one thing I noticed is that I'm putting my stickers down first instead of my boxes. And normally in my planner spreads and my BuJo spreads, I put my boxes down first because I need to know where things are going to be, and then I kind of fit the decor around it. I know that I have enough space on this page though, and that's very intentional. So if you saw in my February BuJo setup, I did each one of my weeks the same way, where I had basically, like in these 2 pages, I would have 2 weeks worth of boxes. So Monday through Sunday, twice, with a to-do list on each page. And I realized last month that wasn't enough space on some of the days. And so I wanted to go back to using kind of like this 2-sheet spread for 1 week. And in the January video, I gave 5 different BuJo setups in these square notebooks so that I could even just have my own options of what to think about for how I wanted to lay boxes down. And so I knew that one of my boxes I wanted to overlap with these painted collage paper, and that's why I pulled out that plain white copy paper, because I needed to cut out a box to basically have something to write on. If I was to just draw on top of that stationery paper, that collage paper, it would be harder to see what I was writing for my plans down. So I put just white copy paper, and I'm going to kind of refine that shape since I've drawn that wiggly box that to me looks like my interpretation now of mushroom spots, and all of the boxes will just basically be these open mushroom spots. And so I'm just going to draw them all around the page and have them kind of different shapes and overlapping and things to kind of keep that whimsical, playful feel. And so one thing I want to try to add in my spreads, and I'm trying it this week, so I might do something different next week. Stay tuned on Instagram, and I'll show you how I decorate the next weeks. But I'm going to go in ahead and do my meals for the week. Now, I've told you in previous videos that I don't plan for every single meal in a day. It's really more like a dinner planner. But I haven't been doing a good job about planning like the right meals for the right days at the right times, given our schedules in my household. And so I wanted to put that on my BuJo page. And so I'm just gonna make a dot for every day, and then go back in with that black Fudenosuke and just put the first letter of the day of the week on each of those dots. And I will kind of decide based on our schedule this week what, when, where, and how we will eat dinner. And that'll be here. And then of course, as always, we need a to-do list. And so I'm just going to add tasks right beside the meals there. At first I was trying to figure out how to fit that on that left side of the page and that little spot down there, but I wanted to make sure I had enough space to actually write enough tasks there. And so I chose against putting that there. I'm gonna go in and fill in that spot now. And I don't have any gnomes on that page, so I'm going to use another gnome sticker. But I feel like this page is super cute, and it was easy to create because the only thing we really drew here was the boxes, and they're kind of like squiggly at your own pace boxes. So this is how everything turned out. Let me know if you liked it in the comments below. Here's the first page. Be sure to subscribe to my channel if you like this content and like this video. Tell your friends about it, and I will see you all next time.